Hey, this is Dr. Greg Steinberg, and welcome to the Links Report, where we talk about the mind game, the golf swing, and everything in between. And tonight we're going to talk, of course, about the Ryder Cup. And I'm here with my co-host, the guru of swing, Mark Harmon.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, everybody, wherever you're seeing this thing. Glad you're with us.
Boy, there were some amazing issues this weekend with the Ryder Cup. And of course, because I'm a sports psychologist and I want to talk about the mental game, I want to talk about, wow, did the Europeans come out hot? And everyone's asking, how were they so hot? During the for Friday and Saturday sessions for the four ball and the foursomes. And I think I have maybe kind of the key. And I think it's this, is that the Europeans were not expected to win. They're not expected to win on the American soil. So they come out with nothing to lose. And the Americans come out with everything to lose. They're playing not to lose, and the Europeans are playing to win. So on Friday and Saturday, man, they just dominate. Did they dominate or what?
Well, they did. And what's incredible is, especially in the foursome competition where they do alternate shot, a very difficult format because you're only hitting every other shot. You're not hitting every shot. And they were just incredible. They were putting scores up of like 5, 6, 7 under par on a U.S. Open venue. Now, granted, it wasn't set up as tough as the U.S. Open would be, but still, for them to make those kind of scores in that format was just unbelievable. And then the four ball, where every player was playing their own ball, they did even better. It was just an amazing display of scoring by the Europeans.
I know they didn't even lose a match, did they, Friday and Saturday?
They lost matches, but they didn't lose any sessions. Uh,
Right.
they just dominated every session, like 3-1, 2.5 to 1.5. It was just unbelievable. I think they won all four sessions, and the end result was America was down 11.5 to 4.5 going into the Sunday singles, and that was virtually an impossible task. Not mathematically impossible, but almost.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, they lost. They
Mhm.
won four matches. That's right. It seemed like they didn't win anything because they were getting killed on everything. But the other thing I was thinking is then on Sunday, wow, we all thought it was going to be a blowout. It wasn't. It was so exciting. I was at the edge of my chair all Sunday watching it, and I think going back to the mental game stuff, I think a big issue had to do with now Europe had everything to lose and the Americans had nothing to lose. So they came out streaming hot, and then initially we saw the blue with the Europeans, their strategy was come out hot the first couple holes, right? And then all of a sudden they cooled off, and then all of a sudden you started seeing red and red and red. And man, oh man, when Cameron Young hit that birdie putt on 18, and then JT hit that birdie putt on 18, and they won those matches. I thought it was going to turn. I thought it was going to be the miracle at Bethpage.
It was incredible. The Europeans won only one match on Sunday. Think about that. They had 11 chances to win because Victor Hovland and Harris English didn't play their match. That was a bone of contention with Keegan Bradley, and it's a little bit of a bone of contention on my part as well, if you want to get into that. But think about it, they won one match out of 11. You have to almost not even be trying to do that. And so it was very close until the end. Had the United States somehow pulled that off, that would have been, I hate to use the word choke, but you probably could have used it in that context had the United States pulled it off. And maybe Europe did choke to a certain extent on Sunday because, like you said, they had such a big lead. They got maybe very complacent. But we see this in regular PGA Tour events too. How often do we see a player go out to a big lead, 6, 7 shots after 36 holes? And unless you're Tiger Woods, most of the time they don't go on to win.
A lot of people are talking about that rule that has been
Mhm.
implemented in the last couple decades where Hovland couldn't play, so Harris English basically they kind of split the match. And they both got a half a point. What do you think of that? Think that's
Well,
fair? Do you think that
it's not
changed the momentum? Do you think
mhm.
the Americans, if they would have got that point because Hovland couldn't play, that would have maybe changed the whole dynamic?
Well, yeah, think about it. If Hovland couldn't play and the rule was if you don't play, you forfeit, then all of a sudden America gets a free point to start the session. But you know who it wasn't fair to? It wasn't fair to Harris English. I mean, to tell this guy you got to sit through no fault of your own simply because the other guy can't play.
Do you think
So
they pulled the straw on him? What do you think happened with that? Do you think he just volunteered? Do you know? Did you read anything about that?
I don't know exactly how they did that. I know it's the captain's decision. We had a similar situation back in 1991 when Steve Pate got into an auto accident right before the singles, and then he had to sit out. And I forget off the top of my head who Europe put in the so-called envelope that they couldn't play their match either, and that actually benefited the United States because the Americans pulled that out 14 and a half to 13 and a half when Bernard Langer famously missed that 6 foot putt on the last hole.
I
So,
think yeah, Keegan Bradley is gonna try to petition to get that rule out of the rule books
mhm.
for next time. That's for sure.
Yeah,
So
either you forfeit the match or you bring an alternate in. You can't do it that way. There's no other sport where, oh, we'll just let you have a tie if you can't play. There's no other sport that does that.
yeah, it's a little ridiculous. I know they're talking about, sportsmanship and stuff, but hey, if he
Mhm.
can't play, he should lose the point. And that
Yeah,
might have changed the whole configuration. The
absolutely.
Americans might have won, and you never know. I
Absolutely.
mean, Lowry, I know he made that putt for the tie, but maybe he wouldn't have counted for the tie. But,
Hmm.
and it actually wouldn't have. And so the momentum can shift, and
Hmm.
it's just too bad that that happened. But I know you're a stats man.
Hmm.
So tell us about stats. What do you think in terms of statistics? Why do you think Europe, their statistical methodology was so much better than the Americans?
Well, they have Eduardo Molinari, and for those of you who may not be familiar with him, he won the U.S. Amateur 20 some years ago, and he's also a European Tour player, brother of Francesco Molinari. But Eduardo got really involved in statistics a number of years ago, and he serves as an important resource not only for Team Europe but for a lot of individual players on the European Tour, excuse me, the DP World Tour, and they lean on him heavily. He's really, really good at doing the statistics. And so they leaned heavily on his pairings. He knows anything and everything about every aspect of all the players' games. And the United States, we have our own analysts too. But what's really interesting, there's an outfit called Data Tech that really crunches the numbers as well. And what they found is the pairing of Colin Morikawa and Harris English in the foursomes was the worst possible pairing you could have out of 132 possibilities. And what did Keegan Bradley do? He sent them out twice, and both times they weren't even competitive. Now, in fairness, the Europeans did play great, but when you're putting out your 132nd best team twice, you're basically giving away two matches. And had those two matches been flipped, and Sunday would have been the same. You never know if the matches would have been closer going into Sunday, what the mindset of the Europeans and Americans would have been. But strictly speaking, you flip two matches, the United States wins the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, I mean, statistics played out. I know they were doing statistics and they said the first six holes, you got to come out hot. The Europeans, their mental strategy was play aggressive, try to
Mhm.
birdie as many as you can. Of course, they're all doing that, but play really aggressive. That's why you saw almost on every day there was blue the first five, six holes because
Mhm.
their attitude was get ahead the first six holes because
Mhm.
then you have a big advantage. That statistically was what they discovered, and they used that stat in their strategy. I thought that was really interesting as well.
Well, the other thing that the stats gurus say Keegan Bradley messed up on is the pairing of Scotty Scheffler and Russell Henley, where Scheffler teed off on the wrong holes the first match that they had. And then, because if you're familiar with alternate shot, you alternate who tees off on each hole. And so they got it right the second time. They still didn't win that match either. Scheffler went 0-4 in the team competition, which is
Yeah,
incredible.
that's an interesting phenomenon there. You got the best player in the world.
Mhm.
He goes 0-4. I know he won his match against Rory on the last day by one up, but really
Mhm.
he wasn't playing good at all, and he was missing so many putts. It was
Mhm.
almost like he didn't really care that much. Did you get that impression?
Well, I didn't get that impression. Statistically, he actually played okay. I read where strokes gained, he was the eighth best player out of the 24 in the competition. But that's a far cry from being the best, which is what we're used to seeing every
Yeah, he,
time
he
we play.
definitely wasn't sharp. I mean,
No, not
it's hard to know if he's caring or not, but it just seemed like his intensity level until the last day, maybe because, he knew he had to do it the last day. It just seemed like if I could put in a nutshell the difference between the Europeans and the Americans, and one of the main reasons why the Europeans won is because their intensity level, their attitude, their joy, their passion for the cup was so much greater.
Mhm.
Yes, Americans want to win the cup. Yes, they're passionate, but it just, is like you listen to Lowry at the end. He's like, yeah, I won the English or the Irish Open, but this is so much more important to me. The reading the Ryder Cup, you could just feel it, and I think that was a big factor too. And that creates this intensity level for every hole, where I don't think you saw it with every player out there, especially Scheffler. It wasn't like he was in that mindset every hole.
Yeah, and I think also the Americans, I'm just speaking from my perspective as a former player myself, that I think the Americans were uptight. As you know, they had a lot to lose. They're playing on home soil. They got the raucous crowd behind them, and Greg, I was really disappointed in the crowd. A lot of
Yeah,
times
I was gonna talk about that. What do you
that was
do you
awful.
do you think that did that inspire the Europeans to play even harder?
I
And that was that
Yeah.
like a deficit to the Americans because they were kind of embarrassed, and yet it was an advantage to the Europeans because now they're like, screw you, I'm going to show you. I think
Mhm.
it was. I think they no one really pointed that out, but I definitely think the fans being disrespectful increased the intensity level of the Europeans, and they even played at a higher level.
I think you're absolutely right. And what I don't understand is why the PGA of America did not have better crowd control. I
I mean,
mean,
there's a lot of people there, a lot of people drinking.
yeah,
They're
you
from
know
New
what?
York. Not
Mhm.
that New Yorkers drink, but I think they just get a little more boisterous than maybe other parts of the country. And I think they were definitely out of hand. Like Roy was saying, is like, hey, this is the Ryder Cup. Root for your team. We love that, but
Mhm.
don't root against me. Don't make noise in the middle of my swing. Don't disrespect me. When I start my routine, just show me respect. And root. You don't have to root for me, but don't disrespect me. I think he had it right
Mhm.
on. Is that hey, we want you to root for your own team, but they were doing too much stuff where
Yeah.
it was definitely disrespectful.
Well, there was a lot of talk coming into the Ryder Cup about the New York crowd would be tough, and I think some of them thought they had to live up to that reputation. Now, let's be fair about it. Probably 95, 98% of that crowd behaved properly.
Yeah, of
If
course.
you got crowds that large and 5% of all the people act like complete jerks, it's going to be a
Well,
lot of people acting
you
like
know,
jerks.
all you need is 1%. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
it's totally true.
yeah,
But again, Roy was mad, but maybe it really helped them underneath,
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and I think that would be, something that a lot of people haven't thought about.
Well, yeah,
So,
I was going to say something that's really interesting. Who's one of the most beloved players on the PGA Tour during regular events? Rory McIlroy. The crowds love to cheer for him. But all of a sudden in the Ryder Cup, he's a complete villain. I don't quite understand that mindset. Yes, I understand he's on the other team,
well, I
and
think I think it's because he said we're coming to win.
yeah,
He kind of like put it in their face a little bit,
hmm,
like we're here to win, we're gonna win. He like said,
yeah,
we're gonna do it. And I think that maybe pushed the buttons a little bit too much.
yeah.
But you're right. On the right, it's fun. The Ryder Cup. Root for your country, root for
Oh
America,
yeah,
root for the Europeans. But and that makes it fun. And that's why every 2 years it's a wonderful event. I mean, some people don't like it as
Mhm.
much as other people because, it seems a little bit of a showcase, but I
Yeah.
think I mean, honestly, this might have been the most exciting Ryder Cup in the last 4 or 5 because I know America lost, but it they almost pulled off this amazing miracle, and it was
Mhm.
close. I mean, it was close,
Yeah.
and it got real exciting at the end there.
It was great. It was a great Sunday. I want to pivot back to one thing briefly before going on to another point I wanted to make. Is we talked about Scotty Scheffler going 0-4 in the team competition, and overall now he's got a losing record. Well, guess what other great American player had a losing record in all the team competition portion? Tiger Woods. So we've got two of the most dominant players that we've seen for our side in decades since Jack Nicklaus, and they fare very poorly in the team portion in the Ryder Cup. I don't know if it's their playing partners who don't play well. I don't know if there's a little bit of indifference on Scheffler's and Woods' part, or they don't grind as hard.
Well,
Being
I,
if
th- I
they're
think
not a
with
team,
Tiger
I don't
Woods, I
know.
can't I can't speak for Scotty Scheffler as much as Tiger Woods, but he always had that goal of beating Jack in the majors.
Mhm,
He never talked about I want to win this many Ryder Cups. I want to win the Ryder Cup on our soil. I
mhm,
want to win the Ryder Cup on the European soil. Then he never talked about that. He talked about majors and wins, and I
mhm,
think that that was his focus. And so he knows he has to play the Ryder Cup, but at the same time if he's not at that intensity level of where he needs to be, he's not going to play his best.
mhm.
And maybe with Scotty Scheffler, it was similar. It's hard to know,
Yeah.
but when you listen to Lowry speak about the Ryder Cup, no one spoke about the Ryder Cup like he did, like how much
Mhm.
he loved it and the passion. And well, let's say there was other people, but his words were just so impactful.
Right.
And I think that just was the epitome of why they won. Is like when you
Mm.
have that much passion for the cup to win, it raises your game. And I think that was the biggest difference.
Well, where that passion manifested itself was on the putting greens. One thing I said in our pregame podcast, I said that the flatness of the greens is going to make this a ball strikers tournament. I was wrong. What it allowed the Europeans to do, because the greens are so flat, if you're even a little bit on with your putting on flatter greens, you're going to make a lot of putts. And if you're just a little bit off, you're still going to miss the putt. So I think the flatter greens really played into the Europeans' hands because it made it easier for them to putt. Now, they grew up on greens over there that was a little bit slower, not quite like what we see here in America. And so when you have flatter greens, they're easier to putt. And they made all their crucial putts when they needed to. We didn't hardly make anything. So uh, that's really where the difference was if you're going to look at purely from the game aspect of it. But I think you're absolutely right. I think their passion, their determination just to get that ball into the hole, put them on hyper focus, and that's what we saw.
Yeah, I mean, it was great golf. I mean, you can't fault the Americans. They were playing really well, but it was just the Europeans were just like were one up in them every time.
Right.
The American would hit a great shot, and the European would hit even a better shot. It was fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
Really great golf. I think Rose was on Saturday. He was like on the four ball. He was like 5 under through like 6 holes. I mean, he was just on
Mhm.
fire.
Yeah.
And he played great the whole time. I know he lost on Sunday, but still, I mean,
Mhm.
he contributed so well for his team. So it was really interesting to watch the Ryder Cup, to watch it play out, to watch the drama, to watch the mental side. Do you have any final thoughts for this podcast?
Well, I originally also thought the captain didn't play that much of a role in the Ryder Cup. I think this time we saw the captain play a very big role. I've been reading a bunch of stuff about the analytics and how Keegan put the teams together. And the Europeans were very happy that JJ Spawn didn't play more. They were very happy that Ben Griffin didn't play more. Now I know Griffin lost the individual match that the team match that he played in, but he only played I think twice. One team match, yeah, twice. One team match and one individual match. Bradley probably should have run him out there 4 times because, as I noted earlier, American rookies generally do very well in the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, I think he was thinking the rookies might feel too much pressure. Who knows?
Well, he needs to
And
look at past. Yeah, but he
he
needs to look
probably
at
he
past
probably
history.
made some bad decisions, but again, he's not hitting the ball.
Yeah,
He's just trying to put uh his best players out there.
yeah,
I mean, everyone's going to fault Bradley for the loss, but again, he's totally passionate. He wanted to win just as much as everybody. And maybe he made bad decisions, maybe he didn't. It's hard to know because he might have put the rookies out there and they would have lost too. So you just never
well,
know. But
possibly.
uh
But here, real quick, I think what the lesson learned, and we've seen this in Ryder Cups over and over and over again. Don't be afraid to play your rookies. Don't be afraid to play the players who are playing well. Use the analytics to your advantage. Quit playing the buddy system. We saw that with Zach Johnson in the last Ryder Cup. He should have picked Lucas Glover a couple years ago. He should have probably picked Keegan Bradley a couple years ago, but he took the so-called safe picks, his buddies or whatever. And maybe I'm being a little harsh on Zach Johnson, but if you really want to win, there are ways that you can make sure that your team has the best chance of winning. That hasn't happened the last couple of Ryder Cups. And yeah, second guessing after the fact, I know it's very easy for us to do. It's easy for us to say this because we're not playing. But at the time, you have to trust what your analytics teams is telling you. And you can't be afraid to play the players who have statistically demonstrated, like Ben Griffin, one of the best players on the PGA Tour all year. Give them a chance. And like I said,
yeah.
American rookies generally tend to do very well. But one thing I want to add with my final thought is please don't think I'm disrespecting the Europeans that they couldn't have won. I think they would have won anyway, um, because I don't think the Sunday singles would have turned out the way it did. I think they would have won more than one match. So they played amazing, awesome golf. So we got to give them the credit.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say my final thoughts on the Ryder Cup coming from, the mental game approach is what can we learn from the Ryder Cup? It's great drama, it's great entertainment. But I think if you really want to learn something is I've mentioned this a few times, you watch Lowry.
Mhm.
When you have passion for what you're doing and it overcomes the anxiety and the stress and it gets you in that bubble in which you need to play your best golf or your best tennis or whatever you do in life. When you have this immense passion for the goal, like we saw with Lowry, it really helps you to raise your game to perform at the highest level. And that's what I was just so impressed with Lowry and the Europeans is that they showed us that passion and joy and competition are all combined to allow you to play at your best.
Mhm.
And those are really the parting words I like to tell you tonight for the Links Report, because what we do here is we talk about the mental game, the golf swing, and everything in between. So thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you again.